Welcome to Insight, Richard.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for being here. How's your day been going so far?
It's been extremely busy, but quite productive, I have to say.
I love to hear that. So you joined Independence in June of last year. What's that journey been like for you so far?
Oh my gosh. It's been so fast paced, and I've learned just so much in a short period of time. And I've really kind of sunk into the culture here and have leaned into just the ideology behind Mr. Katz, where he's going with the company, and I'm just falling in love with it. And, with that dedication to the team, they've also exposed a ton of opportunity for me. And I get to also do quite a bit of other things, other than just loan origination, get to help out with marketing and, all these other little things that we've been working on. And that's been a real pleasure. It's been real fun. And it's really nice to see that some of these things that aren't typically done on a day-to-day basis are now being implemented with the company across the entire sales floor. And, everything's moving in a really nice direction.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, in such a short time, you've amassed a ton of success. You've consistently are one of our top performers every single month. So round of applause for that.
I do appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah. What do you think has contributed to you earning that success so quickly here?
Ethic is a part of it. But I would say the biggest thing is having help, from upper management, having individuals to rely on, individuals that I can call at a moment's notice, building that awesome relationship with my ops staff, having them work around the clock, pushing files and everything like that. So just everybody being on the same page, all hands on deck, and everyone aligning with the same goal, to help the borrower get as many loans done as possible and do it in a very positive and efficient manner. We really just lift each other up.
Absolutely.
And I love that. It's a little bit different.
I know it's not always easy for you guys to be on the same page as that, but I see the relationship between sales and ops, and it seems like you guys are just there for each other and you guys have that routine and everything.
Yeah, and typically it's not like that. And a lot of companies separate sales from ops and, they run different departments completely, but here it's an open floor. If for some reason something doesn't work out with one individual, we can move on to another. And there's a lot of self-reflection that goes into the process too, so we're not just jumping from one to another. What is the LO doing wrong? What can I do to make my team better? What can I do to make things easier for my team as well? And, all the gals, they do appreciate it, reciprocate, and they do put forth additional effort when it is go time. And I saw Julie and Abby working on files, and even Mr. Dines working on files till like 10 o'clock last night.
That work ethic is crazy.
I know. And they're working weekends and everything like that, which is very commendable. I got to give it to them.
Absolutely. Well, you yourself serve as a Marine, so thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
I know a large portion of your clients are veterans themselves as well. What does it mean to you to be able to connect with them, like veteran to veteran, and build that relationship with them?
Honestly, it brings me back to when I was serving in the military, when I was going through, trainings or deployments or just rigorous tasks with those individuals. And a lot of the times when you're in sales, it's a lot like you're in the trenches. So being able to reconnect with veterans, talk about the good times, maybe add some additional benefits that they weren't aware of other than just the mortgage space, I'm all about it. I love it. They love it. Just having that, that background establishes such rapport, with these individuals to where they have just an amazing experience with us. I absolutely love it. And another thing that I wasn't aware of, that was pretty cool to find out. Mr. Katz's dad is also Marine.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
He is. I got to meet him, got his story and everything like that. And that was something that was kind of hidden from me. And, to see that new light, to see that exposure, and to see, where Mr. Katz is coming from, to have that military background as well, that just kind of affirmed, my position here at Independence.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, you've established such a pivotal part here in just a short amount of time. So I think it's great to see that growth, and we can't wait to see how it'll take you forward in the future. But for you, what does it mean to build that trust with clients on a phone call?
It's kind of everything, it's going to make or break the deal for the most part. And I think it's extremely important that us as loan officers take time to be transparent, be honest with individuals. And if for some reason there's no benefit to the loan, kindly let them off the phone type of thing. And establish a time frame to when it might be beneficial for them and circle back to it. I feel that, when building rapport, being upfront with individuals is the best way to go about it. And a lot of the time, the feedback from the clients is, I just appreciate it. You're not like the regular kind of guy. You actually gave me some information. This is something that I'm going to run past my wife. I'm going to take a second look, or, I appreciate your candidness. We'll hold off for now. We'll retry this a little bit later when, there's a little bit more savings or seasoning, whatever the case is. So,
yeah. When the time is right, you can be that point of contact for them when they're ready.
Exactly.
Sweet.
And people do remember, the individuals that help them versus, someone who's just trying to rush to the call to see if there's a deal there.
Sweet. Absolutely. How did you get started in mortgages? Like, did you know when you were in the Marines that you wanted to do this, or?
No, honestly, it was a little bit of a shock. Coming out of the Marine Corps, I knew that, my body couldn't keep up with the tempo of the line of work that I was in. There's only very few jobs, Marines can get into, contracting, police, and everything like that. And after being a combat instructor, it was time to take a step back, find a different career path. And just so happened, I came across a mortgage individual at a certain location, and he showed me a commission check for $20,000. And that was one of the biggest checks I've seen, at my current position at that point in my life. Obviously, that was a big moment for me. I ended up just kind of looking at, that check and what company's name was on it. And I ended up going to that company that Monday, and I asked their vice president for a job, and I gave him, the background, my routine, and, was hired on the spot. Haven't looked back since.
Right. And it kind of fits into what's on the wall, your cat's promise, your skill set and your work ethic will match your commission check. So
absolutely.
Do you think that's translated into what you're doing now?
1,000%. And we're only pushing the envelope, so now that we have consistency of 2 to 3 million a month, the next goal is 4 to 5 million a month, and so on and so forth. The beautiful thing about it is, as I grow, I'm adequately staffed. So there are no shortfalls when it comes to pushing CDs out, ops, turn times, initial submissions, anything. And I can appreciate that too.
Absolutely. What was that transition like for you, going from the Marines into working in sales in the mortgage life?
Well, I learned to be a very patient person, extremely fast. There was a lot of very direct conversations in the Marine Corps, very upfront, black and white conversations. And getting into sales, we are still very, upfront and direct, but we don't phrase it in the way that the Marines do. Do this right now. I don't care how you feel. You're going to get it done type of thing.
Black and white.
Exactly. And, in sales, you can't approach individuals like that. You can turn a lot of people off. So it's finding that finesse, finding the patience and, finding that common medium to get people in the right direction. I used to use my hands and my body all the time for work, and now I use my mind. And it was said to me a very long time ago that your brain is a muscle as well, and constantly needs to be trained. And, that's been the big focus for me. And I just want to say, to anybody else that doesn't have any experience, or maybe they're doubting themselves based on a previous background, as long as you believe in yourself and you're taking that risk and you stay positive, your dreams will come to fruition. We see it here all the time. And especially with the massive Ignite, crew that's downstairs.
Just took right off.
Exactly. And we're starting to see some names pop up over and over again that are hitting, some pretty impressive numbers, competing with some top LOs, and they don't have any experience in the business too. So that's wonderful to see. We love to see those winners.
Absolutely. You did say the brain is a muscle. And I think part of that is kind of like shocking that muscle, like not getting comfortable, always kind of adapting with the industry and not being afraid to change. And I think that's kind of the benefit of programs like Ignite. You come in and you have no experience, but people on the floor can also learn from that class as well.
Exactly. And there's so much more than just the Ignite program. Once they actually hit the floor, there's so many different outlets of different loan programs that we're not covering to keep the training, simple. So it actually is retained, in addition to like processing, funding and all these other aspects. So I love being challenged, I think the next move for me would be to help grow a team, and take it to the next level and push myself a little bit further in that aspect and just continue to grow. I think complacency kills success for the most part. And I couldn't align more with Mr. Katz and, with the way that he's going with the company and how aggressive he is with the growth.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just a matter of time until we take off, I guess.
Yeah.
Sky's the limit.
When he goes public, hopefully I get to be on TV. That'd be super cool.
Oh, hey. Well, this is your trial run pretty much. I love that. How do you balance such like a high performing and high demanding industry with your personal life, being a father yourself and a husband? How do you balance the two?
It's not easy. It takes a lot of self-sacrifice, a lot of discipline, and you really got to look yourself in the mirror and address your faults. I start my day out at 3:30 a.m. All right, every single day. And the first thing that I do, I clean myself up a little bit and I get my butt in the gym. And I get that workout going. I instill that ethic. I shrug off the stress that you encumber in this business. And you do have to do it on a daily basis or else your health is going to decline, and make sure that I'm starting off the day right. I also like to say positive affirmations to myself. I know that sounds, a little bit dumb, but it does go
it's real.
a long way, and the way that you speak about yourself and the way that you address yourself, does show in everything that you do. So I always tell myself, I'm a good person. I'm going to do good things for individuals. I'm a great father. I'm going to make sure I'm going to be there for my kids. I'm going to be a great husband. I'm always going to be there for my wife and her needs and everything like that. And just starting off with that, you can't have a bad day. There's no excuse at that point. You're awake, you're ready to go, you're energetic, you're positive, and everything's good. Life is good. So.
And I'm sure clients can feel that best foot forward that you have when you start your day off like that. I'm sure they can feel that like positivity that you bring to the space.
Yeah. And not to mention, I have an insane edge over my competition. Everyone that's rolling into the office at, 8 a.m. that isn't stimulated or isn't ready to go to get in their coffees or whatever it is, I'm already on the phone. I'm already 6 calls deep. I'm already got my 1 or 2 deals for the day, and they're just getting turned on. And they actually won't be functioning probably for another 30 minutes to an hour because of, how they're approaching their day and things like that. So, if you're looking to hit those higher tiers, if you're looking to push the envelope and advance your career, that perfect routine, is key. I don't think you can actually grow without a solid routine, honestly.
Definitely makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
What is something that you think people misunderstand about VA loans or working with veterans?
I think it's important for us as loan officers to understand who we're speaking to across the phone, right? And a veteran or active duty personnel, firefighter, police officer, nurse, teacher, anyone that's gone through any kind of trial or tribulation, we all go through them at some point in time. To take a step back and, tell yourself that you're speaking to a person, to be kind, to be understanding, to listen to their story, and kind of build that loan around that situation and play to what they actually need. Sometimes individuals will, be so hot and heavy and they'll rush through it that they're not listening to the finer points and they miss out on the sale, or they miss out on, what the veteran needs. I think all of us can do a good job at just taking a step back, listening to the story, and then making sure that we treat them with proper respect. They did serve our country. They put a lot of sacrifice into it, not just them, their spouses as well. The backbone to that veteran is the spouse, and we need to make sure that their needs are being addressed and everything's good there. So for me, I take it very personally. Okay. I like to deliver first-class service on anything, whether they do business with me or not. And believe it or not, they usually come back. They remember the call when rates drop and, they see the advertising. They're like, hey, you were the one that explained this. You were the one that helped me get disability. You were the one that told me about the tax exemption, for my spouse who had passed, and I got the savings there. I would prefer to do business with you because you had my interest at heart.
Absolutely.
And then we're not going back and forth or anything like that. And
right.
I think that's a better way to approach the deal.
And I'm sure it's not always easy to do that because you guys take so many calls in one day. But from the perspective of the client, like I'm sure they're not picking up sales calls multiple times a day. So for them, that's their one moment to connect on that way. So you kind of have to treat it from that point of view. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. 100%. You need to not only be understanding of how they're feeling, but to my point, I even slow down my tone. I slow down my pace. Depending on how they're feeling, I'll make sure that they're taken care of. If they want to talk about something else for just a little bit to help bring up their spirits or whatever before we get into the numbers, I'm happy to do that as well. And like I said, just getting that full picture and making sure that their needs align with the loan and it's perfectly constructed for them.
Definitely. Well, when it comes to building those relationships, can you share a moment or a client story that really stuck with you and kind of reminded you why you're in this business in the first place?
Yeah, I have one right now, and it's a little bit tough. His wife, is in hospice, and he's doing everything that he can to save money so he can visit her, so he can bring her food, so he can spend, his last moments with her. So when we're going through these calls, we do really need to take time to understand that. And with the current offer that he had, they were doing like some kind of VA cash out. Loan officer didn't take too much into consideration and maybe saved him, $100 with 20 grand cash back. The interest rate they had was a little bit high, so we did a streamline. Now they're saving $400 a month. The loan makes a lot more sense. There's no appraisal, no income validation. That loan closes in a couple weeks. He's way happier with that kind of service and product than the one that was rushed that didn't take into consideration everything that was going on. And by doing or choosing the proper loan with that scenario, we cut down on the turn time, we cut down on documentation that he has to grab, especially when you're dealing with something that sensitive. Nobody wants to, go through that kind of process at the same time. So, like I said, just taking a moment to address the need, finding, what they're actually calling in about, and then designing that loan appropriately instead of rushing it, because someone else will take that time, someone like me, and I will get that deal over you.
Absolutely. And you're helping him out more in the long run
Absolutely.
when he's already going through a really turbulent time. It's rough in the first place. So it means a lot to clients, I bet, to be able to trust you and to trust you with their biggest asset, which is their home.
Yes. And more importantly, I think, the winning scenario or the beauty behind this is for the last moments, that they spend time together, they can add a little bit more, value with the time being spent. They're not worried about money so much. She can eat the meals that she wants to eat type of thing.
Right. You take that burden off of their plates.
Yeah. And, sometimes $400 goes a very long way for folks.
Definitely, especially in today's economy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, again, I think just listening to people's story and being a person, being a genuine person, will
it's so
help
simple, but you can't fake it either.
No.
I can tell you that. And I think that you've got it, especially it speaks for itself with your success. But speaking of that success, what does it look like for you personally in the future with IHL?
So John and I had a conversation recently, and, it was the same thing. What do you plan on doing? Where do you want to go with this? You've got a ton of opportunity here. And I had to really think about it, for a long time and make sure that with any kind of commitment that I give IHL, that one, I'm all in, I'm there till the end type of thing. And regardless of whether there's turbulence or, things change or grow or whatever, to still stay the course. So for me, my next step is to go into management, to help start growing out a team, to start, redeveloping or retraining some of the tenure loan officers that may have fell off during this high rate marketplace, as well as, bringing on maybe one or two, freshies, and then start, working with them, bringing them up and kind of sharing the love, the success, and, seeing some other people, get some big wins in there too.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure you're going to crush it. What are you looking forward to next in this next chapter?
I'm looking forward to making a bunch of new friends. Over this last year, I made like 200 friends, maybe even more in this office. I know everybody now.
Okay, love it.
And it's fantastic. I love meeting the new people. For me, taking on a little bit bigger of a workload helps me kind of refine my process, helps me grow as an individual, forces me to understand things that I may have shied away from, previously because I didn't want to do it, or it was just too much or whatever. So like for me, I love the growth aspect. I love training people, and I just love to see people grow.
Absolutely.
So,
well, I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like for you in the future. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with us today. Is there anything else that you wanted to share?
If there's anybody that's kind of like on the fence, about coming to the company, and you're looking around and, there's so many shiny pennies out there, right? I think the best way to do it is to seek out the upper management and have a kind of a one-on-one with them. And one of the things that I can appreciate about Mr. Katz is he's got a pretty open door. He's very straightforward. He'll tell you, where you're messing up, but he'll also help you fix it, and point you in the right direction, or lead you to the individual that's going to get you to that next level. So for me, and what my deciding factor was, was the leadership, right? We need to have dynamic leaders. We need to have leaders that have extreme ambition and leaders that are also, sensitive to the workforce and know, everything there is about this business. So not only can they accommodate to the ever-changing market, but, they're also taking care of the LOs, the clients, and everything like that. And so far from what I've seen, and I know IHL is pretty new, it's been fantastic. We've done everything right from day one type of deal. Mm-hmm. And it's only going to get better,
Definitely. We're definitely one of a kind.
Absolutely. So I would say if you've got the opportunity, and you can make the cut type of thing, because we are very aggressive when it comes to hires and we do look for, very good salespeople, take a shot. It's fantastic. Not only is, the money's been great, but for me, the opportunity to just work with other individuals, to try these other projects, to learn so much from everyone, it's been fantastic. So.
Yeah. Well, I hope we can have you on this podcast again and see how much you've grown and all the things that you've contributed to not only your own career, but to your team.
Absolutely.
So thank you again for being here.
Yeah, we'll bring the whole team next time.
Oh, I love it. We need some more seats then.